Previously on the Game On podcast.
It's interesting to hear back.
Mate, 300 games is fantastic, but we've got to go back to the start, mate. Where did you start your junior career? Where did you play at?
I was a Adelaide Hills boy playing for the Bridgewater Raiders up in the Adelaide Hills there. So, I grew up in Bridgewater. And
in fact, we could even go back earlier than that, Pete.
I have heard a bit of a story about this.
No, Tim, playing career started at Bridgewater, that's for sure.
But he was mascot for Adelaide University. And, of course, Adelaide University famous for every person having their own individual number. So Tim was a half, and then he'd grown. As we know, Tim's an extraordinary tall human being. He'd grown that by next year, so his mum made it. He was 3/4 for next year.
Yeah, true story. Mum knitted me the great black and white jumper when on my first year there as the mascot, and had a half on the back. And then the next year when Dad was coaching the A grade boys era, I still remember those days as a young kid, as I'm sure you do, Malky. Down at the pub and hold your bowlies and all those sort of things. And it was a great way to grow up as a kid. So I was always going to end up in footy somehow. But they were some of my earliest memories of football. Is definitely at Adelaide Uni. But then obviously the playing started up at Bridgewater. There, Dad always tells a story that I think you had to be 8 to play footy. I think it was something along those lines. And I was 4, I think. So I went down to my first training, and the coach said, "Oh, how old are you?" Dad told me to tell you I was 8. And so he said, "All right, I'll believe you, Dad." So I ended up playing, I think it was 4-year-old in the under-8s when I wasn't old enough. But, I had some great memories playing up there. And probably started, on the 8s all the way through to see your junior colts there. And then I ventured down to PAC as a student and sort of started playing school footy there. And obviously living in the Adelaide Hills is a very strong Sturt zone. And so my pathway really did lead to Sturt, and so that's how I ended up there.
Did you barrack for Sturt as a young fella?
Yeah, no, definitely was a Sturt boy. Obviously living in the Adelaide Hills.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, once again joined by Malcolm and Timmy Weatherald, fudging the stats a little bit as far as his age goes, playing in the under-8s.
Knowing his dad Mick very well, I'm not surprised at that whatsoever.
Absolutely.
So that was quite funny.
And obviously a legend at Sturt there. We touched briefly on the tragedy that happened in Bali, and we appreciate him giving his time and talking about that. A very emotional subject, even for us on the night, and then also for myself editing, the interview, going back over. It's just unbelievable that that happened, and Timmy has such a positive outlook and tries to help out wherever he can these days.
Weather's been fantastic. He does quite a few chats around the traps and that, and talking about it, and he's certainly the leader of the Sturt group as well.
Absolutely.
Where he's been the main person for the golf day and the day remembering Josh Deegan and Bob Marshall. So
absolutely. And if anyone is struggling with mental health, Lifeline is definitely worth a call. And these tragedies do happen, and the Lifeline is there for anyone that needs it. So if you do need that, please make that call.
Around the grounds.
All right, mate, we're going to have a little look at the basketball NBA Finals, the SNFL Grand Final, the State of Origin again this week. But we're going to kick off with round 12 in the AFL. Melbourne defeating Carlton.
Yeah, predictable. Probably just went along the script, actually.
Yep.
Just Melbourne did enough.
Yes.
Yeah. and just a bit too classy.
I think we sat here last week going that Melbourne would probably have the goods, and
Yep.
that's exactly how it rolled out. Port Adelaide defeating Hawthorn. High scoring.
Yeah, it looked like they might win by 150 points at one stage. So at least Hawthorn did get a little bit of respectability, but pretty.
Port are a class above at the moment, not winning 9 in a row. Once again, all their stars have stood up. You know, Butters, Horn Francis, Rosie. The forward line hasn't exactly functioned.
Finlayson's had a fantastic year.
Yeah.
He's got to be in the Australian. He'd be in their
All
discussions
Australian,
here. He'd be the squad. He's got to make the All Australian squad of 40.
Absolutely. They've got a few coming back. Obviously, Marshall, Dixon. How do they play that?
I think
when everyone is available.
Lord misses out for Dixon is probably the likely one.
Yep. And Tommy Jonas, obviously, finding his way back.
He's no certain selection.
Yeah.
I'll just wait and see on what they do with that one.
Club's in a good position when their captain and a very good defender doesn't get a game, and I understand why. I mean, you know, he hasn't played very much over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Had some injury, had some suspension, and the team's flying a little bit at the moment when he's not playing. So I can understand that.
Oh, look, also I think he's showing a bit of character, not just to go the automatic captain comes back in.
Yep.
So
and that's probably the difference. Port Adelaide this year, they seem to be making those tough calls, and it's paying dividends at the moment. All right, we move on. Collingwood defeating West Coast.
Again, while West Coast came back in it, Collingwood then put the foot down.
West Coast showed some grit there in the second quarter.
Predictable result.
It was.
Out of that, I think Jordan De Goey is very, very lucky to only get 3 weeks.
I was going to mention
I thought he should have got 4.
Yep.
It was a pretty average. Picking him off. Those days are gone.
Yep.
Well and truly, and so they should be.
Yeah, I look at it, I totally agree with you on that, but I also look at it in the way that the body was positioned and then the ball came out, he sort of braced himself for impact, but he still has a duty of care. So I totally get it, 100%.
Yep.
All right, surprise of the weekend, the Bulldogs being defeated by Geelong.
Oh, a little bit. I think that was a 50-50 game. I think there was a couple 50-50 games and unfortunately tipped the wrong way, personally.
So did I.
Not a real surprise.
Keeps Geelong in the hunt a little bit.
Yeah.
It sort of questions a little bit of the Bulldogs. But once again, like we've seen with a lot of these teams this year, bad kicking costs them games.
Yep.
I mean, they kicked 10 goals 15 to 15 goals 7. So, they get 2 or 3 more goals there, they probably win.
Well, they were in front in the last quarter.
Yeah.
So, and similarly, the GWS were in front at the 31-minute mark.
Yep.
GWS.
All right, and then we move on to the Suns v Adelaide. You called it last week. You called it.
I almost predicted what had happened. That Adelaide would be in front, quarter time, it would be closer at half time, and Gold Coast would run all over him.
And that's exactly what happened.
Listen to Mickey Godden on the... I was with Mick Redden on Sunday, so that's what I thought of Mick Redden. Mick Godden on the road. For Adelaide to say they considered going to Darwin but didn't, and try and put some bit of soap on the ball and jump in the sauna. I'm sorry. If you're preparing to bat against Lily and Tomo in Perth, you don't face a bowling machine in Faisalabad in Pakistan.
Yep.
It's a ridiculous comparison. Adelaide had to go up there earlier in the week to acclimatise. For what was a huge game, 5% can win and lose games.
Absolutely.
Lose a final spot out of it. They got what they deserved. Absolute incompetent.
I heard this phrase coined by a previous guest of ours, the yo-yo crows.
Yep.
Up and down, up and down.
Yep.
Now, in all the games, barring the Richmond, I think it was, they've actually had a handy lead against GWS, against Collingwood and against Gold Coast.
And Richmond, they hit the front in the last quarter.
Correct. So it's frustrating to watch, but are we seeing that evolution of a young team that is a little bit up and down on form? I mean, I don't want to make excuses for them because really at the end of the day, they're good enough and their best is good enough.
Yes and no. It's still a massive frustration personally that Adelaide have basically had a huge weakness in ruck since 2017, since Jacobs in 2017. And look, Riley O'Brien, he tries hard.
Yes.
But he's not good enough. Yep. I'm sorry, by now, you've got Strawn on the list. You've kept him on the list for 4 years. Have a look at him.
Yep.
Decide whether they're good enough. Because at the moment, I don't think either are.
Yep.
They've got to do something else. And you just for mine, it's just so frustrating.
So at the end of the year, obviously the trade period, is there a chance to get an established ruckman? There's not too many around, floating around. That's the problem.
It's not an easy spot.
Yep.
And I do know that there was a recruiter having a look at a ruckman earlier on in this year in the under-18s game, because I happened to be talking to the recruiter.
Yep. Did you sell him a book?
I might have.
Oh, perfect.
And that, so it's just, it's got to get better yet.
Absolutely. Again, you're not going to have every position on the ground that's going to be guns.
I just don't get it, though, that Matty Clark was a superb tap ruckman. That was his one
strength.
A+.
Yep.
That Riley O'Brien still just hits the ball. There's no finesse. There's no feel. And look, he's a very smart guy. He's studying to be a doctor, but it's a classic
and his
person.
work behind the ball is generally pretty good as well.
He just hasn't improved in that. It's classic where he lacks footy now.
Yep. So a little bit of confidence there.
Yeah.
Is that a case of the ever-changing midfield? I mean, he's been there when the midfield has changed quite a bit over the last few years.
And you've got to cane the coaching panel. For mine was a classic also. There's our plan.
Yep.
Now, Laird, Dawson and Keys attended 20 bounces, and yet Pedler attended 7 and he got more clearances.
Yep.
So
you've got to pick up on those trends. Yep,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, mate, we'll leave that one where it is. We'll move on to Giants defeated by the Richmond Tigers in a sort of a last gasp couple of minutes there.
Fluctuating game, quite high scoring.
Yep.
So good effort by Richmond in the end.
And Marlon Pickett kicking the winning goal there. It was
up.
actually beautiful, wasn't it?
So, there was a good finish.
And Essendon had to shake off a determined North Melbourne.
And again, North Melbourne were in front at the 24-minute mark, so that's a big result, though, in the end, because Essendon have got the best draw. They will make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the buys, obviously, for last week were the Lions, St Kilda, Sydney and the Dockers. Yep. All right, mate, we quickly move on to this week's rounds. Kicking us off Friday night, we got Sydney and St Kilda.
Thursday night, tomorrow night.
Thursday night,
sorry.
We're recording a little bit earlier. We'll let our listeners in. I'm actually heading up to Queensland for a fortnight for some lawn bowls, the Australian Open, and we've had to record a little bit earlier than we usually do. So, yes, we're going to get these tips in a little bit earlier in the week.
And hope we've probably got to shorten the show because we're doing a few interviews
We are
tonight,
doing a few interviews tonight. So, Sydney v St Kilda.
I'll go Sydney.
If in doubt, go for the home team. Yep. All right, the Bulldogs v Port Adelaide. This one's going to be a bit of a cracker.
Good game, but I'll go Port.
I think Port are going to continue their winning ways. Hawthorn v Brisbane.
Brisbane.
I don't think you can pick Hawthorn at the moment. I think they'll be competitive, but I think Brisbane are just going to be a little bit better. Crows v West Coast.
Crows.
I think the Crows as well. Fremantle v Richmond.
Good game, but I'll go Fremantle.
It is over in Perth, so I'm going to go Freo as well. North Melbourne and the Giants.
I'll go to the Giants.
A little bit of a flip of the coin, but I think also the Giants. It is down in Tasmania, so interesting. Now, this one for me, Carlton v Essendon.
I'll go Essendon.
I'll go Essendon as well, but there are rumblings that the playing group and also the factions in the front of house aren't happy with Michael Voss, and this could be a coach killer, this one right here.
Rumours around. We'll wait and see.
We'll wait and see on that one there. And then we finish off on Monday, obviously the King's birthday holiday, or the previously Queen's birthday holiday. Melbourne v Collingwood. This one's going to be a belter.
That's the game of the round. I'll go Collingwood.
Absolutely. I will go Collingwood as well, but only just. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than we think.
Out.
Yeah, and Melbourne...
Oliver out for
sort of balances itself out a little bit, doesn't it? I just think Collingwood have got a little bit too much run at the moment, but look, Melbourne are going to be there or thereabouts, and as we've done with our tips lately, we can't quite get them always right. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the basketball, the SNFL football, SNFLW, and the SNFL, and the tennis as well.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Mate, we move on to the SNFL round 8.
Yeah, some close games. Nord Centrals, Connor McLean had a chance to tie the game up and missed after the siren. Glenelg beating Adelaide by 2 points.
That was a little bit of a surprise.
Adelaide had the ball on the half-forward line and they were picking up just about to have a shot as the siren went.
South Adelaide defeating the Roosters.
I went to have a look at that game on Sunday, and, South were good. North were a little bit disappointing, probably overused the ball a bit and turned it over too much. Errors, but, South capitalised them, just played a bit more percentage footy than what... and Sturt just got snuck home against West Adelaide.
They've had a few close ones, and the Eagles defeating Port Adelaide. They're the sleeping giants for me, the Eagles. Obviously, with Sturt doing so well, Glenelg sitting second at the moment, and the Eagles are just hanging in there, and I reckon they're timing their run beautifully.
Yep.
All right, mate, we move on to round 9. Woodville West Torrens v Adelaide.
Toss of the coin. I think it's actually a curtain raiser game, I think, on
Adelaide Oval,
Adelaide Oval.
12:35 Saturday.
I'll go Adelaide.
I'll go Adelaide as well. West Adelaide v North Adelaide.
I'll go North to rebound.
I reckon North Adelaide there as well. Port Adelaide v the Bulldogs.
Port a couple back. Toss of the coin. Is that at Alberton?
It is at Alberton.
I'll go the home side.
I'll go Port Adelaide as well. Obviously, mid-season recruit Narkle having his opportunity to play last weekend, and from all reports, played pretty well. So we talked about that he might be pushing for an AFL spot sooner rather than later.
He will be.
Glenelg v Sturt, first v second. This is, for me, the game of the round.
It is, and there's been some really good promotion trying to get 10,000 people at the Bay. They've really hammered that for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So, game of the round.
Obviously on Monday.
I'll go Glenelg.
Clearly, Glenelg are pushing a bit for the AFL gather round to have a game hosted there. To get 10,000 would be a pretty good advertisement.
Yeah, I'm a bit bemused on that one. If they're allowed 10,000 on what Norwood were, because Norwood is certainly that bit bigger than Glenelg.
Yep.
So, it is interesting, that one.
And to finish us off on Monday as well, we've got the Panthers v Norwood.
Yeah, I'll go South Adelaide.
Home team down at Flinders University Stadium. Panthers are a little bit of a surprise packet for me this year, and I have to pick them at the moment, as much as we want to pick Norwood, but we just can't.
Look, they were certainly... Their footy on Sunday is a class above what I've seen anything from Norwood this year. So,
Absolutely. And just going through the ladder very, very quickly, Sturt, Glenelg, Adelaide, Woodville West Torrens and Central taking out the top 5.
Yeah.
All right, mate, we move on. The French Open, we brushed on it briefly last week. There are a few early rounds going on. The Aussies always get off to a pretty good start in round 1, round 2. Wawrinka obviously got beaten by Kokkinakis, which was a big feather in his cap. But unfortunately, he couldn't go on with it. Yep. Now we're up to the quarterfinal stage of the men's and the women's. Yeah,
it's funny where we lost, retired, prematurely retired, the women player.
Ash Barty.
Losing Ash Barty. Sort of you lose a bit of interest.
Yep.
Unless you're a real fanatic, a real tennis person.
And there's a changing of the guard. I mean, Federer obviously retiring. Yeah. Nadal's injured and looks like that, he's probably going to go around for a couple more, but not a couple more years, a couple more tournaments.
Yeah,
if that. And they've been the big 2 or 3 for quite a few years. So you're right, there is a little bit of lost interest a bit, but also the French Open is probably, out of all the ones that people keep an eye on, that's probably the least. Whereas when you come to Wimbledon, it's obviously the one that everyone gets involved with. So in the quarterfinal matches, we've got Alcaraz v Tsitsipas. Now this is going to be a belter of a game.
That's probably the game of the tournament so far.
Correct.
It's really just toss a coin.
It is a bit. And then you've got Djokovic versus Kachnikov. Very, very good players in their own right, but you'd expect Novak to get over the line there.
You have to tip him.
You do. Then you've got Zverev versus Etcheverry.
I reckon you did that pretty well.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't having a crack, Pete.
No, that's okay. He was a late winner late last night, so I had to put that one in at the last minute, so I haven't had a chance to research him. But he's the outsider of all these names that we've covered. And the other quarterfinal is Rudd versus Rune, and again, very, very good on the clay. Yeah,
so again, you can go either way on that one as well.
Alcaraz and Tsitsipas is, for me, the game there. I would really love an Alcaraz-Djokovic final if we can get it, but I don't think they're in that half of the draw. So
I like Tsitsipas as well. So,
we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll report back in a couple of weeks' time and touch base, and we'll have a French Open champion. We'll be leading into the Wimbledon. And then in the female side, you've got Svetlina versus Sabalenka. Again, players that have been around on the tour for quite some time. So, again, it's a toss of the coin, like you said. Machinova versus Pliskova.
Oh, geez, you're dominating this.
Thank you very much. Again, around the mark as well, not a lot on these players as far as Grand Slam wins. So, they're putting themselves in good position to obviously take out their maiden Grand Slam. Swiatek versus Goff. Now, for me, this is probably the game of the round, I suppose, in this case.
Yep.
Goff being the young phenom that's doing really, really good things. Swiatek, who took over the world number one from Barty. Obviously, that was Barty's main rival at the time. And then Juba versus Mayer. Again, been around for a while, looking for their maiden Grand Slam victories as well. I think Juba has been to a final before, so I think as part of those Netflix series where they follow players around, she was one of them. And obviously at the Australian Open and how she goes about her preparation and everything else. So, yeah, very, very interesting to see how that all pans out. We'll take a quick break, mate, and when we come back, we'll have a look at the NBA basketball, the SNFLW, the NRL, and a little bit later on, our special guest for tonight, Ross Dillon.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.
All right, mate, we continue around the grounds. The NBA Finals, we brushed on it last week with the conference finals. Celtic were pretty close, coming from 3-0 down and almost pinching it against Miami. But the Denver Nuggets and Miami Heat currently, as we speak on Tuesday, are tied at 1-1. Miami, a bit of a surprise in their second game, winning away from home.
And came from well down.
They did.
About 18, I think.
They did. Denver's still the favourites to take the series, but anything can happen in grand final series. So we'll watch that one with interest over the next few days and see if Denver go ahead with it or Miami Heat keep them on their toes.
Yeah. Miami in with a big chance.
They are. And, it's a different final series. You sort of expect the Lakers there, Golden State, the Oklahoma have been there a little bit, Celtics have been there a little bit. A couple of new teams, which is good for the sport.
Yep.
All right, we move on to the SNFLW. Last week we talked about the prelim final, Norwood v Centrals out at Elizabeth there. Centrals got off to a belter of a start, didn't they?
Yeah, just way too good. Really comprehensive win, which the actual Nord highlight was the last kick of the game where Ali Farrell, lovely lady, captain of Nord, kicked a goal with her final kick in SNFLW footy. So
who says there's not romance in sport?
So that was the
highlight.
Definitely highlight Nord, but Central's really composed, really good team performance.
Yep.
Ben Hunt would have been delighted with that, and it just sets it up.
Oh, Rexy?
Yeah, Rexy sets it up perfectly. South Central's real toss of the coin job.
Yeah, well, we talked earlier on about Central's playing in their first final series. They now find themselves in a grand final. And like you said last week, playing some really good team footy. I'm in the same boat. I can't pick. We've followed them over the year and we've sort of South have won all the close ones. Yeah. Central's just keep coming.
It should be a good game. And at Prospect Oval.
It is at Prospect Oval, yep. On Sunday there. I think it's 12:45 from memory. Out at Prospect. So, once, like we've said previously, if you're looking for something to do on a Sunday with the SNFL playing itself over the entire weekend, there's an opportunity to go Sunday, head out to Prospect Oval and watch the grand final. All right, mate, we move on to NRL. State of Origin played here in Adelaide last weekend, and Queensland got the job done with one player short in the end. Yeah,
which is a big result. And it sets it up. I think it's, 72%?
72%, or 74%. If you win the first one, you generally go on and win overall.
Well, you've got to tip Queensland then on that basis, basically.
I think you do, and I went for Queensland right from the get-go. I've picked them the last couple of years. There's just something about Queensland. I don't know. They just bat a little bit above their weight in some cases, and they always find a way to win.
I think there was 48,000 there in the end too.
Big plus.
So, on a cold
Wednesday night. Yeah.
And it was actually fascinating. We happened to go to the zoo on the Thursday, and it was packed.
Yep.
And I'm looking, there were that many rugby tops at the zoo.
Yes.
And I ended up talking to talking to various people.
Yep.
And there was a couple of flown over for the game from New Zealand, big rugby people, and thought they'd have a look at the zoo. And
wow.
Yeah, so you forget about that spin-off effect.
Hotels are full.
Yeah.
They probably then go for a bit of a drive out to the Barossa, taste a little bit of wine, take some wine home with them, have a couple of meals at some of the city city pubs, city eating establishments, and all of a sudden the income that's coming into the state is fantastic.
Well, we park probably 10 minutes further away at the zoo on Sunday
than you normally
on
probably
Thursday
would.
than what we normally had the 2 weeks earlier. So, yeah, incredible.
Fantastic. And obviously the state's going to go again, I would imagine, for trying to get it. But, Melbourne are going to put their hand up to hold a round of State of Origin. But
we're
I
the
think
king of sport.
We are the centre of the
leaders.
universe, absolutely. And we do it so well.
Yep, go Malik.
And 48,000, like we said.
Yep.
You can't sneeze at that.
And the Premier had a game on Saturday too.
I did see the highlights on that one there. Someone handed him a chalky milk.
Yes.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, mate, we move on. After the break, we've got Ross Dillon, and I really look forward to hearing about his time over in Melbourne and then heading over here to Adelaide and playing at Norwood and obviously a big part of Dillon's bookstores as well.
Business-wise, Roscoe's been a significant contributor in South Australia for a long time now.
Absolutely.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Past players, past legends, past legends.
Tonight we welcome Ross the Marshall Dillon. Roscoe, for Melbourne, between 66 and 72, 85 games, 133 goals, leading goal kicker in 69 with 48, 70 with 41. Played state football for both Victoria and South Australia. Coming over to Nord, his debut in career from 73 to 78 at Nord, 114 games, 242 goals. Of course, the best and fairest in the premiership year in 75, third in the Magarey. Leading goal kicker 73, 75. Advertiser team of the year 75. Couple of games South Australia. Welcome aboard, Roscoe.
Thanks, Malcolm.
And very good cricketer as well.
Well, I was going to get to that.
Yes.
We've obviously talked about your exploits on the footy field, but mate, where did it all start? Obviously, growing up in Kyabram.
Yeah, Kyabram in northern Victoria, town of about 7,000 people these days. Fruit growing and dairying area. That's where I lived for the first 17 years of my life.
And did you play for a local junior club up there?
I played for the Kyabram High School for a couple of years and then got in the first in, must have been 65. We had a really good team. We had Dick Clay, who ultimately played in 4 premierships for Richmond.
Yep.
He was our centre forward. And ultimately we lost the grand final to a Tom Hafey, Coach Shepparton, by a small margin.
Roscoe still kicks himself for hitting the post towards the end. He's brought that up with me a couple of times.
Yeah, worst sporting moment of my life.
So you mentioned also that you were a keen cricketer as well. Did you'd played for the school as well?
Played for school and then played for Kyabram. Played in the sort of interzone teams, and then in 1965, I wanted to play cricket for Melbourne and footy for Melbourne. Melbourne had just come off 6 premierships in 10 years with Barassi as captain, Norm Smith as coach, and a lot of fantastic players in the footy team. But Clive Fairbairn was a chairman of selectors at Melbourne Cricket Club, and he was formerly a Kyabram man, known to our family. So those were the main reasons that I wanted to play for Melbourne.
Some pretty handy names there, Barassi and
Norm Smith.
Norm Smith. Oh,
and
wow.
Roscoe's And so he should be. Very proud that he's a member of the Kyabram cricket team of the century, along with the Australian elegant left-hand opening batsman, Matty Elliott. Jimmy, trying to think who else was in that side. There was...
Jimmy Higgs was named coach.
Yes, I knew that Higgs was the other one. Yep.
Mainly because he played for... He went to private school in Melbourne and played when he was home for a team called Fire Brigade. But he's Kyabram, through and through. Yeah.
And so Melbourne, quite young, and probably a little bit unlucky, as it turned out they were on the decline a little bit. But so debuting for Melbourne, go through that, Roscoe.
First game of 1966. Was selected at centre half forward. We played St Kilda, who were ultimately that year's premiers, their only premiership in their history. 60 plus thousand people. I'd always dreamt of it as a kid, wanting to do that, and it was a memory I'll never forget. I went to Melbourne High School for a year, and things were going pretty well until after the sixth game, I hurt my knee at training in an uncontested drill, which subsequently cost me a couple of years. I had 2 operations on one cartilage, which in those days it was a little more involved than it is these days. But that wasn't much fun because it knocked the footy around and it also knocked the cricket around. Just in the years when I, would really have loved to have been playing it.
Did I read somewhere that 10 out of the 12 Victorian clubs cricket were chasing you down?
No, that was in footy.
No, that was a footy club. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a couple of interesting incidents there where in 1965, when it was going pretty well at Kyabram with Dick Clay, and there were teams coming up all the time. It was before zoning, and a couple of quick stories there. Mum was out on the golf course one day. My father was killed when I was in 1963. So Jack Dyer went out on the golf course, to see Mum, which I'm sure he would have had his ears bashed out there. And then I was riding my bike out with some mates out to the local golf course with Mum's golf bag over my shoulder, and a car pulled up alongside me and asked me, was I Ross? And said, well, do you mind if I have a chat? So there were 2 fellows in the car, and one was Bob Davis, the coach of Geelong, and the other was Leo O'Brien, who was their secretary manager.
Yep.
And they offered me a trip to Hawaii at the end of season trip. And I'd been to Melbourne a couple of times, but Hawaii was a bit out of the imagination.
Wow.
So
that would have been pretty hard to knock back, Roscoe.
Yeah.
Yes, but so I went to my senior master at school. As I said, I didn't have dad. Anyway, I went to my senior master, who I played footy with, Ozzie Nelson, a really good man, and asked Mr. Nelson what he thought, and he said, well, do you want to play with them? And I said, no, I want to play for Melbourne. And he said, well, probably it'd be a good idea if you didn't go. But Geelong had a terrific team at the time with Polly Farmer, and Dennis Marshall, and Peter Walker, and all of those fellows. So Doug Wade. So, and as you said before, Melbourne were when Barassi left at the end of '64 to go and coach Carlton. That was the start of a demise of Melbourne. For probably lasted the next 50 years until a couple of years ago when they won the premiership. Yep.
And then '69, Roscoe, was that your best year, and then the end of year the state carnival where you dominated for Victoria.
No, I didn't dominate. We had Royce Hart as centre half forward.
You got more praise than Hart did. I reckon I'd take that as domination, Roscoe.
No, only because he went off. He had to go off in the last game against South Australia on the Saturday. I think he went into the game with a suspect calf, and he only lasted about a quarter, but he'd kicked a couple of goals already. I came on and I played on Rick Schoff.
Yep.
It was pretty handy, and at halftime the scores were even, but then things started to turn, and we finished up winning by 10 or 12 goals. But we had some of the players in our team. You had Nichols, Jezelenko, Hudson, Bob Keddy, Bob Murray, Kevin Murray, Barry Davis, Kevin Bartlett.
It's a fair side.
That is a fair side.
Especially before State of Origin, so having Hudson and that as well,
Sam Newman as well.
Yeah.
Kekovic, although I don't think Keka played in too many games. I think he was injured. Yeah. But, that was fun. 50,000 people at Adelaide Oval and the old Oval with, the old setup with the temporary stands going down King William Street there, and there might have been 50,000 there, and be lucky if 1,000 of them were barracking for Victoria. I do remember.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't that many. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Barassi was our coach.
Yep.
And I remember going on to replace Royce Hart and running for a ball early on, and just an elbow came across, just missed my chin. And the message, it was Harry Kernahan, and the message came out from Barassi that you have to go a bit faster or a bit harder, and I didn't send the message back, but I thought if I'd been half a yard quicker, I would have lost my face. Anyway, but very memorable. Always wanted to play for Victoria. And at the end of the last game, I had a visit from a guy, a young fella from Western Australia, wanting to know if I'd swap my jumper with his. And I said, no way. I've dreamt of getting one of these all my life. You're not getting my big V. It just happened to be a fellow I became really good friends with later, and still am, is John Wynn. He was playing for Western Australia.
Of course.
Yeah, but he wasn't getting it. He's, that was my first contact with Johnny.
The connections we've got through this show. We've had Winnie on.
Yes.
Right. How did that go? Because
entertaining as expected. Yes.
He didn't leave us wanting. That's for sure.
No, great man to have. I call him Digger.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's the one you'd want in the
trenches. Bloody oath.
Yes.
So, and then the Melbourne. How much did the part of your injuries play a part in deciding to come to South Australia?
Well, in '72, I got at the start, or in pre-season, I got an Achilles problem that from running on the roads, trying to get fitter.
Yeah.
An inflamed Achilles, and I couldn't get rid of it for about half the season. And having been Victorian team 69, 70, I think. I'm not sure about 71, but anyway, so I missed about the first half of the year. Came back in the seconds and for the first game and got 11 and went into the first next week. Melbourne were going all right, and we lost in a wet day against Fitzroy on the MCG. Got dropped the next week, and first time I'd been dropped. Didn't enjoy it very much. At the end of the season, they offered 15 guys contracts, and I wasn't one of them.
Bizarre.
And so I virtually made my mind up then that Melbourne weren't going anywhere. I'd lost a fantastic friend in Norm Smith that had gone to South Melbourne to coach, and then in '73, I think he went to North Melbourne. He wanted me to go to North Melbourne when Barassi had gone there to coach. Norm was going to be his chairman of selectors. But I didn't enjoy Melbourne living all of that much.
Yeah.
I was a country boy. And I didn't think that Melbourne weren't heading anywhere. And I thought, if that's like, contracts were just starting.
Yep.
If I wasn't included in that after being there for 7 years, well, I'll move. They tried to talk me out of it, but I said, look, car's already packed, I'm going. And then they came back after 75 and wanted me to go back, but along with North Melbourne, but I chose to stay here, and probably fortunate that I did.
How did you get to Norwood? Was there somebody that approached you, or?
It was mainly through Wally Miller.
Yeah, I thought it would have been.
I think Norwood had Robert Odie as coach, and he developed a lot of terrific young kids, Butter and Woody and Black, Glenn Rosser and Gags, and Mike Colligan, etc. They had a developing team, and I think and you had Glenn McMahon, I think.
Yes.
Took over from Rex Wilson. Rex was involved in my move, but I think there were guys. Robert wouldn't necessarily have wanted an interstate player, but he had Winnie already, so that was enough. No, but I don't think Robert was over keen, but the likes of Glenn McMahon and these guys thought that Ford needed a centre forward come centre half back or whatever, and I think that's where the drive came from. And Glenelg were visiting at the same time with girls and Harry Kernahan. Norwood. I chose to go to Norwood.
Thank goodness the Redlegs got you over the line. And this,
I never, sort of never regretted it. So it was Wally and Rex. Rex Wilson was in the meeting when we finally got arranged a clearance. What it cost them or not, I don't know.
Wally's a shrewd operator, isn't he? He can
yeah.
spot talent. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, Wally's one of the great administrators in football history.
Yeah.
This went off.
Wally and probably Norm Smith are the two most, and Bob Hammond, three of the most significant football people in my footy time, yeah.
And this is when I've actually first met Ross, because Ross, when he came over, played cricket for Kensington. Yep. Took 5 for in his first A-grade game.
Your eyes would have lit up, mate.
Yeah, I was, because I did the scoreboard at Kenzie as a kid. So I was about 10 or 11 when so that's when I first met Ross before he played footy for Norwood. So then debuting for Norwood in 73, Roscoe?
73.
Yep.
73. We played Sturt and got whopped on at Norwood Oval. Rick Davies in his prime, and I probably got to know Sandy Nelson as a centre half back for the first time. So they gave us that was an interesting introduction. As I said, Robert was coaching, and Robert's coaching was interesting, but he was equally important in Norwood's subsequent premierships.
Yeah, because
he developed all of these young guys who are the backbone of Norwood, throughout the 70s and early 80s, undoubtedly. And then Hamo came along and taught us how to work and how to, hard work and the importance of winning. And then Barmy came along after that and, did really well.
And 74 was a bit disappointing finish to the end of the year. We bombed in the finals, but then 75, Nord and Glenelg, the two dominant sides, we won 16 in a row, and I always thought it was hilarious, just 'cause we lost the second semi, that Glenelg was such overwhelming favourites, where for mine it was always a 50-50 game, and I think that actually turned out to our advantage, and Glenelg it was bizarre how they were such overwhelming favourites.
Oh, well, they were known that year as the unbeatable Bays, and they had Curls coaching, and the press were all over that, and I think we beat Glenelg at.
It was 1-1. They beat us, and we beat them at Glenelg. Yes, yeah, yeah,
with a game or two to go, and we had a pretty good win there, but we'd won 16. I thought it was even 8, but let's say 16 in a row.
Yeah,
and so we went into the second semi, and they beat us. They had a good team, no doubt, and then we had to beat Port Adelaide in the preliminary final, which
certain Greg Turnbull dominated.
Yeah, Turbs.
Turbs kicked 6. Yep.
Geez, he's a good player, Turbs.
I
better tell him that. I better remember next time I see him.
Got to make sure it's early in the morning. So.
No, he's a good fella, Turbs.
Yes.
Man. Yeah. So then we had them in the grand final, and it was seesawing, and then Curls made his great move and put Butch Phyllis into the ruck, and to try and quell Butto, who was dominating. And that was one of the finest things that ever happened to me in my life.
It helped you, yes. Colin Anderson went on to you, and mind you, the bit out of it. Butch virtually might as well have been taking you out dancing for that second semi in the first 3 quarters. He was holding on to you the whole bloody game, and you didn't get anything. And then, ironically, you get a lucky free kick in the last quarter.
You only had one umpire in those days. It was Peter Mead, but I'm not going to bollock Butch. Butch is a mate of mine, and great competitor, and one of your opponents that you respect.
Yep.
But I have asked him, that holding on business, was that you or Curls? And he said, probably a fair bit of me, as in him. Yeah, we laughed about it after, but it was pretty inhibiting because he's a strong unit.
Was that the grand final with Nord did no press and Glenelg did all the press? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yep.
In 75, yep. That was Wally made the rule in the week. And, so we let Glenelg go. And, so Roscoe kicked and really came into the game in the last quarter. You sort of took over. You couple of marks on the back play. Then a bit of rucking where Mike Olsen jumping over the top, palmed it down, and he followed up. You marked and handballed off to him, and interesting goal umpiring decision. We all think it was a goal. We're the ones that count. So
another Wayne Harms job.
Where Mike Polder may have carried it through, but so the Red Leagues getting up 9-10 to 7-10, and it was. I admit too.
The sort of things, the right things go right for the winners, and the wrong things go wrong for the losers. But
I tell you what, this lady standing next to us grabbed Dad and kissed him when the siren went, and I'm thinking, geez, the old man's just got an upgrade. So, Mum wasn't too happy, so yes, but it was it was just interesting. So I was only 12, just watching people and just people just openly crying and a lot of relief. First flag in 25 years. It was certainly a special occasion.
Absolutely, and then first time for 25 years, and back at the ground, back at the Oval was just fantastic.
Parents wouldn't let me go. I'm still spewing about that. Yes, go on.
I still recall making way through the crush after the Oval celebrations had finished, and we're going back to the social club and trying to get across Wood Street there.
Yeah.
People shoving $10 and $20 notes and whatever in your pocket, and I'd have to say the taxman unfortunately wasn't declared. I can't remember. Probably spend it 10 minutes later over the bar.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic.
And then 76 and 77, we sort of probably didn't quite come through as well. And then 78, with you, your body started to let yourself down, and you coached. Coaching
I
the,
couldn't. Yeah, I coached the twos.
Yes.
I couldn't. One of my strengths was I could jump, for marking, etc. And my knees started to, my left knee in particular, started to annoy me fairly constantly. I like to be fit, which meant you had to do plenty of work to get fit, and you started to be that you're inhibited doing that. So it started to tail away, and I coached the twos, and I was assistant coach and coach of the twos, and I said I'd really finished. I didn't want to play, and then later in the year, there must have been players injured, and they asked me to play, and so I played through to the second semi, and and unfortunately, or not for the twos won, which was fun.
Beat West Adelaide
against West Adelaide. We had a pretty strong side in those days.
Yeah, we got one of the. We've got David Palm on later tonight as well. Actually, we're doing a few tonight, so that was. Yeah, I'll always say that Palmy not playing in the league side, I'll always find that as a.
It was he and Chris Binneman were close selection. Yeah. You better not say too much, Malcolm. I'm sure I was a selector in those days. So.
Yeah, I thought Palmy should have played. I've got to be fair. But
you tell Palmy for sure I would have played him. Yeah.
When did the business side of it kick in when you were over here with the? So it was West Lakes News Agency to start with, wasn't it, Roscoe?
No. Norwood,
the Nord News Agency. That's right.
That was it happened in '78, and that really, and we had our first child, Alex.
Yep.
In '78, she was the first of 4 children. And we started the news agency at Norwood. After a year, expanded it. After 2 years, sold that and went to West Lakes, and that started a whole. We had 17 shops over time. Expanded them, knocked walls out, changed houses about 3 or 4 times. So there was, and I consciously made the decision. At the end of '79, that the coaching path wasn't going to be mine. We'd started the businesses, and so I know there's Norwood people who, were not necessarily happy with the way or the fact that I stepped away, but I felt as though I just had to get on with the rest of my life.
And you've been a huge part of the South Australian news agency and book game now book industry, for a long time now.
45 years. The bookshop has been our last business. We grow these businesses and then sell them. The bookshop we held for about 37 years, and I sold it, or Sue and I sold it to 2 of our sons, Angus and Alice, about 2 months ago. But I've never been so busy doing nothing.
I'm sure you're still in the office a fair bit, Roscoe. You couldn't help yourself. And obviously I greatly appreciate the fact that you've sold the definitive rule book in your shop, Roscoe. So, greatly appreciated it in that regard as well.
Good on you.
Was that something that you were keen to get into business-wise, like some sort of business-related after your footy career?
That's a good question because as a boy in the country, all I ever wanted to do was play footy for Victoria and cricket for Australia. That was my dream. And you'd never find me in the library at recess, lunchtime or afternoon. And exam time had come and I'd think, this is pretty hard, mainly because I hadn't done any work. footy season had finished, straight into cricket, and or it'd be athletics or swimming or tennis or whatever. It was a gung-ho sport in the country, and so then going to Melbourne to play footy and cricket, and going to Adelaide and playing footy and cricket. I never stepped foot inside a university, and so I thought, 77, 78, that the choices were go down the footy path, or get on with the rest of you, make a career out of something. And so friends of mine in Melbourne had about 5 news agencies at that stage, and I thought, if they can do it, maybe I can. And so, and Jack Richards, the mayor of Norwood at the time, assisted me to get the news agency in that new, what was Woolworths then, shopping centre, and that really gave us a start, and just progressively, taking risks like in sport, calculated risks, and backing it up with focus and concentration and hard work, and working with good people. Similar things with footy and cricket that I applied to.
Oh, don't worry, Roscoe knows his stats. I walk him in the shop and he go, sold 7 of that one book yesterday, 4 of that one, 3 of that one. He's got a bloody memory like a steel trap. So, yes.
Dylan's bookshop, obviously located on the parade, still doing a roaring trade.
That's the one that my two sons,
boys have got. Was it a lot of learning on the job with that?
Absolutely. This is me, you mean?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I didn't have a book background, but that shop started off as 65 square metres, and it's had 6 expansions at 700 square metres now. Yeah. It's a terrific business, terrific location, great demographic. So Sue and I only hope that the boys continue and do really well in it.
Oh, kudos to you and Sue too. How many of the staff have been there for donkey's years as well? I think that's always a big tick for any business when there's long-standing staff around as well.
Connie, Amanda, Kathy, some of these girls have been there for 20 years or 25 years, and they're just treasures. They're fantastic. Has enabled me to develop another interest, playing golf, being involved at Kooyonga.
Kooyonga, yes. Kooyonga Golf Club leader, captain at one start, and all that sort of thing. So, you've always been a pretty big golf man as well, Roscoe.
Yeah, didn't play it when I was younger much. Because footy and cricket, they were the main focuses. But golf for me is I love the banter. I love the fact that sometimes you do well and sometimes you don't. You can get a sporting highlight every now and again, and the odd low light as well. But you can still compete, and that's what I enjoy doing.
What's the handicap, mate?
It's about 13, 14 at the moment, or it's I'm playing off about 14. I think it's about 11.4 or 11.8 or something like that.
I knew you'd know the stats on that one for sure.
And Roscoe, you served on the Adelaide Footy Club board as well, and if they'd had a brain, you would have ended up high, doing a lot more and in a significant position as well. So, yes.
3 years there. Fortunate to be there when won the '98 premiership. Bob Hammond was really the one who caused me to be involved.
Yep.
But a bit the same as when at Norwood. It didn't suit me at the end. I didn't like some of the things that had happened.
Yeah.
and said, "Well, I've got other things to do in my life. I'd rather get on with that. I don't want to exist in an environment that I don't enjoy." Yeah.
Yeah, no, I summed that up pretty well. It was just, let's just say that was disappointing. There were things which should have happened, and Adelaide Football Club would have benefited, but that's life. And
Malcolm, there's politics in the golf
everything.
club and the tennis
in
club.
Everything.
So footy does.
There's often more politics in sport than what there is politics in politics. I'm
not much of a politician.
Yes, not my strength in life either, Roscoe. I admit too, when I was doing the article on Ross, so Sue and the children and through Ross's mum and that did up a book of all his clippings, and Roscoe lent it to me for that. So I admit I was happy as a pig in shit with having every clipping around and reading through it.
Absolutely.
The other half, Emma was panicking that I'd get water on it or anything, but no, I was very careful and made sure that it was returned in pristine condition. So.
Yeah, but left half the cuttings out. I got, I was a keen gatherer of these things over time, and I got about two suitcases. So just out some of the really good ones. There's a photo in there of taking a mark in front of Big Nick and Polly Farmer on the MCG when we were playing Victoria, playing Western Australia, and I said that's not even in there. Anyway. But it's been a lot of fun.
And now one other point too, Pete. So Roscoe's named in the top 10 Kyabram sportsmen of the last century. Now these include your world champion, your sprint cyclist Stephen Pate, Dick Clay and Gary Lyon, and Test cricketers Jimmy Higgs and Matty Elliott. So it's fair company.
Matthew Elliott.
Yeah.
Matthew Elliott. Unfortunately, Brett Delidio, he came after the last century, so you'll have to wait for the next one. Brett Delidio, Jimmy Higgs. I was actually talking to Dick Clay yesterday. He lives in Ocean Grove, and I rang him to say congratulations on being named one of 8 Richmond Immortals.
Yes.
He's been added to it, and he said, lucky it's called Immortal and not Mortal. But I congratulated him on that. And then he said, hey, hang on. About it, I still get the Kyabram Free Press. I got it today each week, and a young boy, Rowan Aldous, who's a journalist there, rang me a week before Anzac Day because apparently the first game I played at the MCG was on Anzac Day, and there was a story about 2 young boys who were going to play in Little League on the MCG that particular Anzac Day. Anyway, he said, "Can I send you some questions?" Anyway, he sent me about 26 questions, and I thought, geez, this is going to take a while. So I replied to it, and out of it, it became a 2-page article in the Free Press. And Dick Clay, yesterday, he was complaining to me that he's just been named as an immortal at Richmond, and he got 2 paragraphs, and I got 2 pages, and I said, well, you'll have to investigate whether I paid for that or not.
I will say one thing too about Roscoe. He's very Kyabram still. He always goes back. Kyabram in the finals, he's back. He follows Kyabram still very, very forcefully, and certainly always knows what's going on, and that.
A bit like Winnie, always checking in.
Winnie, you can't believe that he doesn't live in Adelaide because he knows everything that's going on. He's in touch with anyone who's got a problem or has got a difficulty, etc. Winnie's the first one on the phone.
He's the godfather of the Nord Footy Club, and the leader. Man. He's the leader, and I often see a lot of similarity. I've always said with John Wynn and Ian Chappell, they're 2 elite leaders and leader of men. And Winnie's compassion and care for everyone he's a remarkable man, Jonathan Francis Wynn.
I was just talking about Dick Clay and his disappointment regarding his 2 paragraphs in the paper. The other thing you didn't mention was the being selected to sit with the royal family in 1970, I think it was, at the MCG with Ross Smith and John Schultz. that came out of the '69 Carnival and us beating South Australia, I think.
And you entertaining Princess Anne.
Well, we were instructed to address them as Your Royal Highness. Well, as a boy from the country, that didn't sort of ring too many bells. And after about 5 minutes, I thought this is going to be really boring for all of us if I go down that path. So I thought I'd just talk. I was between the Duke and Princess Anne and the Queen and these days King Charles. Anyway, so between the Duke and Anne and I getting on like a house on fire. We were laughing and joking, and every now and again the Duke would ask me a question. What's that fellow in white? What's he running there for? And I had to. I was just about to say, listen, pal, I'm a bit busy here. If you wouldn't mind asking Johnny Schultz, he doesn't seem quite so busy. But I did not get an invite back to. They had some function at the Britannia back at the wharf that night, and I didn't get an invite to go back there, and I was pretty disappointed in that. So my mate Ray Presnell, who'd come from Kyabram, and I went to Powerhouse Disco on Albert Park Lake that night and laughed our heads off. Yeah. Anyway.
What could have been?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that'd be right.
So mate, it'd be remiss not to ask best players you played with.
Best players played with. I love playing. Dick Clay was great. Yeah, it was 70-metre drop kicks at centre half forward. Kyabram, and he's in the team of the century at Richmond.
Yep.
He was terrific. There was a fellow at Kyabram that no one had ever in Adelaide would have ever heard of, as a fellow called Jeff Cooper, two Aboriginal brothers. Well, Shepparton were our arch rivals, and Jeff Cooper, and coached by Tom Hafey, and Jeff Cooper one day kicked 9 goals out of 11 from the wing, playing for Kyabram. He came from a mission near Swan Hill, and he was Eddie Betts playing for Kyabram. He was that good. But in those days, other than Doug Nichols and probably Sid Jackson, there were very few Aboriginal players ventured to Melbourne to play. There were probably earlier in Western Australia with Farmer and the Crackers and co. But Farmer was fantastic. I loved playing with Hassan Mann for Melbourne.
Yep.
He was fantastic. Playing against, I've always found Peter Stewart, who was at North Melbourne, difficult. In Adelaide here, Butch Phillips and Sandy Nelson.
Yep.
Those guys weren't easy to combat. Phil Carman.
Yeah, he was incredible.
I have significant regrets the way it finished for Phil.
Yeah.
He was. I always thought that. I played with him in '73 and '74.
Yep.
He went to Collingwood in '75 and should have won the Brownlow for sure that year, other than for a broken bone in his foot, I think, in a state game. Winnie was a different type of great player, but terrific captain. Russell Evert, obviously, and Barry Robin, they were freakish. Blighty. They pretty well.
Yep.
I'm sure of. Yeah.
It's a fair list.
Yeah.
Paul Bagshaw, Rick Davies.
Yep.
How good were they?
Oh, fantastic.
But Woody kicked 601 goals for us, or 602.
Yep.
He regrets kicking one of those.
I knew you'd get that line in. I've been waiting for it.
Yeah. Oh well, Gags and Glenn Rosser.
Kingo.
Kingo. Oh, you can't forget Kingo. As I said, we'll leave people out, but I refer to Kingo as Wally's pet because he won at least six best and fairest, and
6 other times in the top 3, and twice runner-up at the Copeland too. And we have had Kingo on with us one night too. So great man as well.
Yeah, terrific player, terrific. Okay.
Greatly appreciated, Roscoe. Say hello to Sue, and good luck to the boys in the business. And I did ring Thrasher to see if he was going to be involved. He said, "Come on, rulebook. I've never picked up a book in my life." So yeah, just stirring Thrasher up as well. So yes.
Otherwise, yeah. Good on you. It's been a pleasure. Good to know you.
Greatly
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much, fellas.
Thank you very much for your time, mate.
Thanks, Roscoe.
Good on you. All the best.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break. Happy days.
All right, mate, we move into happy days. Happy birthday to Sam Hayes, Port Adelaide, 23 years of age, taken with pick 47 in the 2017 draft. Sam Hayes is a pretty serious talent, only playing 7 games in 2022, yet to register a game in 23. 102 kilo ruckman.
It's an interesting one because Sam Hayes is a better ruckman, tap ruckman, than either at Adelaide. So it's...
Well, his contract comes up at the end of 2023. Now, Porter in a bit of a quandary as well because Lysette is probably the one at the moment that is a little bit questionable.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Now, they subbed Lysette out
that
on the
was just to
weekend,
rest him,
but that was more the rest.
6-day breaks
Correct.
in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there is a bit of interest in Sam Hayes, especially if you are looking to go down that tap ruckman route. All right, this week in 1962 in baseball, mate, a one-day record of 54 home runs are hit in baseball.
You get to keep the baseball too, don't you? With the
You
home
do.
run? So what a great day for spectators.
Kids would have been absolutely loving it, and that's one of the highlights. I've been to Fenway Park, and you get to keep the ball there, and it was amazing watching the Adelaide Giants this year to the games that I went to. You know, those balls go over the back of the ground. There's kids scurrying out to go and grab them. So it's just a unique part of sport, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can't keep a tennis ball, you can't keep a cricket ball, you can't keep an Aussie rules football.
Oh, no.
You can try, but you can't. Yeah. I don't think you can keep an NFL football. I know that one of the Brady ones did get caught by somebody and then ended up getting returned, but they paid for it. Yeah, very interesting. So it's a unique part of.
I don't understand how that started. It'd be interesting how it started in baseball and it stayed. It's a real big thing of the sport.
It's a staple, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to hit 54 in one day, I mean, yes. A lot of games get played over many, many cities and states, but 54 in one day is a pretty fair effort, considering that hitting a baseball, if you hit at 3 or 4 out of 10, you're actually considered elite, which is massive.
Yeah.
So, I just thought I'd chuck that stat in because it's always a fun fact.
Yep.
All right, we move on. Tennis, very topical at the moment. Yes. French Open men's tennis in 1984. Czech star Ivan Lendl wins his first Grand Slam title, beating John McEnroe 3-6, 2-6, 6-4, 7-5, 7-5.
Pretty fair effort to come
Two
back
sets
from
down.
2 sets down. Yeah. It's probably clay, the one surface with Lendl with hitting it back. But in pure hindsight, you wonder if John McEnroe got slightly frustrated trying to hit winners at that surface. So, But a fantastic, fair effort to come back.
And Lendl's always been known as the Iron Man, so
back.
You need that stamina on clay court.
Yep.
We talked obviously earlier about the players that are playing in the quarterfinals. Alcaraz is a 19-year-old beast who just will go all day long, and Djokovic. He's at 31, 30, but his body's in absolute peak condition. So very, very interesting as well. But, you're right. Ivan Lendl probably just had a little bit more stamina on that day, and McEnroe was probably trying to go for it a little bit more than usual. All right, we'll stick with the tennis, mate. 1979, tennis women's French Open. Chris Evert dominates Wendy Turnbull of Australia 6-2-6 love for her third French Open crown.
just basically probably looks, comprehensive scoreline, just outclassed. And Chris Evert was one of the all-time greats.
You talk about your Mount Rushmores for tennis in the women's, and Evert always comes up in that conversation. And when Wendy Turnbull, unfortunately, her preferred surface would have been the grass, not the clay. Yep. So, but still, again, make a grand final, make a championship final. You're doing pretty well. All right, we move on to cricket. In 1952, mate, cricket. England's cricket class divided, hit for 6.
It was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
It was, Protestants and the Methodists as well in cricket.
I thought I'd add this one in for you, mate.
Yeah, it is. But it was bizarre when you think of it now.
Yep.
And you think of an England dressing room now, it virtually covers every nationality.
Correct.
It's almost recruiting of the
yep.
But back then, it was. And don't worry, the Australian thing was just as clicky. So
yep.
Yeah.
And then obviously the opening batsman, Len Hutton, becomes the first professional cricketer captain England in Test. Really almost the beginning of the professional era.
Yeah, one of the all-time great bat players too.
Yep.
So, fascinating.
It is. That was a fascinating stat when it came up. I thought you'd like that one, mate.
As a cricket nut.
Absolutely. All right, mate, let's scoot into the extra time, big finish.
Extra time, big finish.
All right, mate, we kick off with netball. The Thunderbirds results having a very, very good season, but unfortunately just in their last minor round game, coming undone against Collingwood.
Yes, a bit disappointing because losing against the Pies. Collingwood bizarrely finishing up as a club. I think we covered that a bit last week.
We did, yep.
So they're in the finals. So things start afresh. I think we finished second at the end of the minor round. Sydney finishing minor premiers. So Sydney Swifts, I think.
It looks like we've got the Lightning at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, and then the Swifts away on the 17th of June. So, we'll keep a bit of an eye on that. But, their season has been one of really good positives, and let's hope they can go one more. And we talked earlier on in the year, I think we were in January, February, going, look, any trophy we can bring home is a big thing, and we'll celebrate it. And maybe we'll try and get a representative from the Lightning on the Thunderbirds on at some stage, and obviously talk about the season, hopefully with a premiership medallion around their neck.
Yes.
All right, mate, we've done every week so far, we've had a bit of fun here with the AFL. We've got the trade, re-sign, retire. 3 big names here I've got on the list. Daniel Rich, Patrick Dangerfield and Trent Cotchin.
Well, the re-sign is pretty obvious, is Dangerfield. Trade, I don't think there'd be any interest in Rich or Cotchin. I think both those two will retire.
Yep.
So,
but if you had to pick one, because we've got to do it legit. If you had to pick one that you're trading, who are you trading and who are you retiring?
Rich retiring, trading Cotchin.
Wow. Okay. I was going to go the other way. I'm sort of on the bandwagon of re-signing Dangerfield.
Yeah.
I reckon Rich has some trade value, but Cotchin, I'm not sure whether he wants to go on. I think mentally and physically, I think he's pretty much all spent.
I think they're both out in that way.
Agreed. Fair call, mate. Yep. Not a problem. All right, mate. Cricket, this is your baby. I'll let you take the floor on this one. Test final begins this week.
Tomorrow night.
Yep.
So playing it with India. So Hazelwood out for Australia, ruled out. Looks like Boland will play. Mm-hmm. Bumrah is out for India. India have had a few injury troubles, and that as well. So it's at the Oval too. Fascinating that it's at the Oval, not at Lords. I don't know why, considering they've played a test match at Lords last week. So it's not like you could say, I wasn't ready or anything.
Yes.
So,
it looked like a little bit of a green top at the moment, just from what I've seen.
Yeah. That's before cuts. That'll get mowed 2 or 3 times.
Absolutely.
So apparently the weather's looking pretty reasonable. So
that's unusual for England.
For England. So it looks like we will have a start. I think it's 7:00 tomorrow night.
Yep, 7 for 7:30. I reckon it is. Again, we'll stress we're doing this episode a little bit earlier because of my commitments. Who's your tip, mate? I mean, obviously it's going to get down to the war of attrition for the bowlers, especially not only for this test, but also the Ashes coming up as well.
So it's interesting. So Punjara's played a lot of county cricket with success, and so Smith and Labuschagne for Australia.
Yep.
So I'll go Australia because I think neither side's had great preparation. I hate this bit without playing.
Yep.
I've gone on and on about that enough.
Yep, those trial games here, there, and everywhere. Yep.
Yeah, just coming straight from the IPL, I don't get it. Warner's comments, you know what? We'd all like to name when we retire. We'd all like to name whatever we want to do in life. But, hang on, pal. You're very, very lucky to still be being picked.
Yep.
Pull your head in and get some runs.
I was going to ask you about that. He made, obviously, his comments.
Bizarre.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, his ideal swan song should have probably been the Sydney Test last year, really.
Yeah,
It's a weird one that continues to obviously give us stuff to talk about, but you're right. Trying to name your call in a Sydney Test later on in the year or early next year leaves me scratching my head going, why?
When he made runs in one game.
Yep.
And somehow he got named cricketer.
Yes.
Yeah, won the season, which was farcical to say the least.
Absolutely.
But, we all can't say,
Yep.
Really, he's on his last legs now.
Absolutely.
He's got to get runs in the next.
Yeah, if he doesn't get runs...
They're saying he's going to be given 3 tests. Well, I reckon he's lucky. That's 6 innings.
Yep.
So I reckon he's going to be lucky to be given that many. So,
So are India playing for the draw, obviously being the higher-ranked team in this case?
No, I think because it's a one-off, I'd be surprised. I think they'll try and
get a result.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's actually even a reserve day. I think there's a 6th day set aside.
Right. Very interesting. We'll watch that one with some interest as well. All right, mate. Soccer. Adelaide United feature heavily in the A-League Awards with Player of the Year, Craig Goodwin.
Yeah, well, it's not a
What can you
surprise.
say?
He had a fantastic year. Did very well at the World Cup. It was great to see someone out of the local league.
Yes.
And that contributes so highly on the world stage in the biggest tournament.
Yep.
Scored.
And obviously helped Australia qualify as well.
No, so he had a fantastic... He's ticked every box.
And then Calvia gets named Coach of the Year, which is fantastic. I mean, he does have that local flavour, does play those younger kids, seems to get the best out of them.
So, look, it's interesting where Adelaide finished up to be named that, but good luck. Yeah.
Well, I think you've got to look at his job over the last 2 or 3 years and go, he's building something quite good. But unfortunately, with these young guys, they end up getting poached by a lot of European clubs or... Middle Eastern clubs or wherever's paying the top dollar. I mean, from the club's point of view, their transfer fee's fantastic, but
I
from
don't
a
think
local
you can
point
plan
of view,
3 years in advance.
Yeah.
It sounds great in theory, but good luck.
Congratulations to the Central Coast Mariners. I did watch a bit of this game the other night, and boy, oh boy, they were impressive with a 6-1 victory over Melbourne City.
Yeah, and 6-1. Wow.
Well, it was 1-1. Well, actually, Central Coast were down 1-0 at one stage. It was 1-1 for a good part of that game, and then they put the afterburners on and just went bang, bang, bang. And next minute it was 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, and you're like, blow the siren, get them off.
I picked up my son because he's Manchester United, and it was on Paramount, the FA Cup final, so we went to the Aqaba.
Yep.
And he said, so you followed the A-League final? I said, no, I haven't had a look yet, mate. He goes, Melbourne City won. I said, yeah, it's probably pretty good. And then he's gone, Central Coast 6. And I've gone, what?
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I sat there with my jaw on the ground going, and the way they set it up, it was just perfect. Everything worked perfectly for them, and they get the ball in a perfect spot and then change direction and bang, it's in the back of the net. It's like, well, hello, that's a brilliant goal on any normal day, let alone a grand final.
So I'll give Daniel his due. He stitched me up well with that one.
I hope he didn't stitch you up too bad. All right, mate, we'll finish off on the AFL. The Tribunal, obviously, once again, a hot talking point, and in our case, Jordan Ngoe is probably the one that we want to single out this week.
I think he's lucky to only get 3. I certainly thought it was just an obvious minimum 3. I thought he might have got 4. Yep. So I think he's lucky to get the 3. It was dumb.
Some were calling for 5.
Yeah. It was dumb. Really dumb. It was too late. It was just those days are gone. Like,
we did touch on it briefly earlier when we did the teams, and you're right. The duty of care these days has to be first and foremost to the players.
Tackle the guy. It was dumb.
Yeah.
Dumb.
I know he braced himself for impact, which is a natural reaction, but you've almost got to take that out of it these days. And, you're right. 3 is start the car and take it while you can get it.
Well, and the buy will wait and see now if he's got any Bali highlights to come.
Absolutely. All right, mate. We'll follow that one up over the next couple of weeks, and as per usual, mate, we better wrap this episode up. We thank Ross Dillon, Roscoe, for his time tonight, and as per usual, mate, we promise to do better.
Definitely.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.